Dublin area in deposit in the Drehid Landfill site, North West Kildare, and related issues. Minister. Deputy.
Thank you. That's Minister. Minister, the issue that I raise today is concerning the Drehid landfill facility, which is in North West Kildare. The landfill is well established. It's been in operation for some years, and dare I say, an uneasy peace exists between the landfill and the locals of late, or up until late. However, there have been recent difficulties which have exacerbated, I suppose, the relationship and have strained tensions and caused considerable concern and unrest and upset to all the surrounding areas for some miles around, actually, in fact. Essentially, this landfill has seen an escalation of activity since earlier this year. I understand the landfill was close to wind down or close to end of life, approaching the end of last year, but a decision was taken, I think it was in February, certainly in spring of this year, to ramp up the intake of the landfill from 120,000 tonnes per annum to 360,000 tonnes per annum. As I say, I think it was in February or March of this year. Obviously, a trebling of the volumes of waste going into the landfill is causing a considerable burden upon the neighbouring communities and indeed on the wider county as people traverse multiple local back road routes to access it. This trebling occurred almost overnight. I understand there was a formula used, which I might come back to in a moment, where a number of local authorities simultaneously invoked emergency powers to enable this technically to happen. But what it has meant is that all of a sudden the volume of trucks pounding down the local roads surrounding the landfill's in a relatively rural and remote area. The only approach roads to it are also across local rural roads. As a local representative before I came into this House, I would have been very familiar with complaints on the standard of those roads, as there were, not to mind, 360,000 tonnes of waste pounding down them seemingly every hour of the day, every day of the week. There has been no attendant infrastructural improvements to the roads surrounding the landfill in this time since the trebling of waste was granted. The local authority would suggest that there are a number of approved haul routes. It is my opinion and the opinion of the residents, I say, in the many miles around radius of the landfill, that these are not adequate, totally inadequate for the volumes now traversing them. It also seems grossly unfair. We understand, everybody understands the waste has to go somewhere, and we understand it even has to go to Kildare at times. But anecdotally, I understand that the Drehid landfill is now taking waste from almost the entire Greater Dublin area. I understand that the delays of the Poolbeg incinerator have led to a concentration of waste at Drehid landfill. I understand there may be one in Galway, but obviously Drehid is closer than Galway, and it seems totally disproportionate, unfair and overly burdensome on the residents of Kildare that they would have to suffer to become the dustbin of Dublin for almost that entire area being deposited in daily. I asked the Minister what actions are in place to sustain this, to manage it, what kind of infrastructural improvements are going to accompany this trebling of capacity. Is the Minister aware of this development? Is it in fact the case that the entire Greater Dublin area and surrounds are being deposited into Drehid landfill in North West Kildare? And what kind of infrastructure should be in place or needs to be in place? How soon can we get it? Because, as I say, it seems completely disproportionate and unfair to expect that rural location in North West Kildare to absorb the volume of trucks, of waste, of odours, of traffic, heavy goods vehicles and everything else for miles around, pounding down them on a daily basis, and without even a public consultation. I understand an application is due to the EPA to regularise the situation, as they put it, but this has come about literally the flick of a switch when there was an emergency invocation in February or March of this year. It's unsustainable and it's unfair on the Kildare residents, and I asked the Minister to address it as a matter of urgency.
Thanks very much, and thank Deputy Ross for raising this issue with me. The responsibility for waste management planning is the responsibility for local authorities under Part 2 of the Waste Management Act 1996. In this regard, Connacht Ulster, Eastern Midlands, Southern Regional Waste Management Plans were made in May of 2015. In brief, the plans comprehensively set out clear strategies, policies and actions to address inter alia the prevention, generation, collection and management of waste in the state for the period 2015 to 2021. Furthermore, the development and implementation of the plans will give effect to national and EU waste management policies and legislation. I am precluded under Section 60, subsection 3 of the Waste Management Act 1996 from the exercise of any power of control in relation to the performance by a local authority in particular circumstances or a statutory function vested under the Act. Waste capacity developments, including any future potential pen points and the coming on stream of additional capacity, are kept under constant review by the 3 regional waste management planning offices in consultation with the industry and other waste regulatory bodies, including my department. The management of waste in the state, generally in line with government policy, is continuing to move away from the disposal of waste at landfill. In 2011, the number of landfills which accepted waste for disposal stood at 21. Currently, there are 4 landfills actively accepting waste around the country. The coming on stream of the Dublin Waste-to-Energy plant at Poolbeg next year will be another significant development in terms of how we manage our waste in the state, and the regulatory authorities and waste operators will continue to engage to ensure that the sector has the capacity to deal appropriately with the waste we generate. In terms of waste management facility at Drehid, the site is governed by waste management and all other applicable legislation, including a licence and planning permission attached to the site. The facility in question operates under the industrial emissions licence granted by the Environmental Protection Agency. The monitoring and enforcement of the conditions attaching to the industrial emissions licence is a matter for the EPA. All documents relating to individual licences, including inspection information, are available to view at the EPA's website at www.epa.ie. Issues pertaining to planning legislation, including matters regarding traffic management, do not fall under the remit of me as Minister for Communications, Climate Action and the Environment. I want to say to Deputy Lawless that the big issue here is a capacity issue right across this country in relation to waste. And that's why we're actively engaging in how we can actually reduce the amounts and volumes of waste that are going into landfill. And that's why we're trying to actively encourage people to actually segregate their waste, segregate it into the brown bins for biorecycling or composting, into the blue or green bins in relation to recyclables, and into the black bins. I know a significant amount of segregation again takes place in relation to the black bins before waste goes into landfill. And I would actively encourage people to segregate their waste properly, which would actually reduce the volumes going in. And as we have, and we're in reuse month, I would actively encourage people to reuse goods. Try and, rather than using the likes of disposable cups, to actually reuse mugs and reusable cutlery and cups. The same in relation to goods, that there can be another opportunity to reuse those for another purpose, upcycling them instead of disposing of computers, sending them for specific recycling where they can be used in the developing world. There are huge opportunities out there to create employment, to reduce the volumes of materials going into landfill, and that is the long-term sensible solution to address the overall problem that we have at the moment in relation to landfill.
Minister, thank you for that. I would respectfully suggest that, although entirely and wholeheartedly support the segregation and recycling and reuse opportunities, and I'm sure my constituents do also, that is not going to address 360,000 tonnes of waste hammering down the road at full speed today, tomorrow, or even in the current year, which is the immediate problem. The Minister has suggested that there are clear strategies, policies and actions to address the issue of waste. Clearly, in this case, they're not working. I referred to an email received from Borough Panola earlier this year when I highlighted this directly with the agency. They referred to a Section 56 of the Waste Management Act being invoked to enable simultaneous invocation by multiple local authorities of emergency powers to enable the landfill to ramp up immediately. This is to address a potential shortfall in capacity nationally and the fact that there was a backlog of waste and stockpiling of waste at licensed and permitted sites. Clearly something is going wrong. In regards to the EPA, there wouldn't be a great deal of confidence in the EPA in Kildare and Kildare North in particular. The landfill at Kerdiffstown was a previous site. Multiple complaints were made to the EPA over a number of years, culminating in a fire at the site, which could be seen from the nearby N7, and 10 million in fines being issued by the High Court, the greatest fines ever in a waste management conviction. So with respect to the EPA, we don't hold them in terribly high confidence in dealing with this issue. There is an immediate issue, as I say. It appears, and for what the Minister said is I suppose not denied, if not confirmed, that the multiple waste from the Greater Dublin area and region, there are 4 landfills, according to the Minister, around the country. This does appear to be the one of greatest proximity to Dublin. As I said at the outset, it seems unfair and disproportionate to be concentrating that into one rural location on the perimeter of Dublin. And I call upon the Minister to take action to examine the infrastructure, examine the planning needs, address with the EPA, address with the lead authorities in the regard, the Waste Management Planning Lead Authority in this respect, because the residents cannot continue with this. It's making their lives a nightmare on a daily basis.
For the Minister.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Laws. As I set out previously, I am precluded under statute from intervening in matters concerning waste management planning and industrial emissions licensing, which are functions of the local authorities and the EPA respectively. In addition, matters pertaining to planning legislation, including issues regarding traffic management, do not fall under the my remit as Minister for Communications, Climate Action and the Environment. Notwithstanding the above, I believe that the Regional Waste Management Planning Office, working in a coordinated and cooperative manner to drive the implementation of waste management plans, will ensure that the health of communities and the environment in the 3 regions are not compromised. The Regional Waste Management Planning Offices will continue to engage with industry and with other waste regulatory bodies, including my department, concerning waste capacity developments. And on the issue of waste capacity developments, I understand that earlier this year, following consultation with the 3 regional waste management planning offices, with the industry and other waste regulatory bodies, including my department, it was evident that some collectors were experiencing difficulties in finding suitable residual waste disposable outlets. On foot of a recommendation by the 3 regional waste management planning offices, additional disposal capacity was released under Section 56 of the Waste Management Act of 1996 for a limited period of time to overcome a pinch point experienced in the state in the first half of 2016. As I previously stated, Deputy Lawless, all documents relating to the individual licences, including inspection information, are available to view on the EPA's website at epa.ie. They are the responsible authority. I have to say, from my own experience, that I found the EPA to be very thorough. I know there are issues ongoing at the moment, and I'm not and cannot comment on those at present.
We now move to